Kane and Abel, 1979, by Jeffrey Archer. Introduction. Jeffrey Archer's Kane and Abel, first published in 1979, is a masterful tale of ambition, rivalry, and destiny that spans over 60 years and 2 continents. At its heart, the novel follows the lives of 2 men, William Lowell Kane, a privileged American banker, and Abel Rosnowski, a determined Polish immigrant. Though they are born worlds apart, fate entwines their paths in a relentless battle of wills, shaping not only their own lives but also those of future generations. The novel draws inspiration from classic themes of power struggles and personal ambition, reminiscent of the Count of Monte Cristo and other legendary rivalries. Some readers have even speculated that aspects of the story mirror real-life business magnates of the 20th century. Archer's storytelling keeps the audience gripped from start to finish, making Kane and Abel one of his most celebrated works. Imagine 2 men, one born into wealth and privilege, the other into hardship and poverty. Both are determined to conquer their worlds, yet their destinies are forever intertwined. But what if, in the end, they were never truly enemies? This question lingers throughout the novel, adding depth to their long-standing feud. This summary has been compiled and presented by Dadson Education, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to literary analysis and education, offering valuable insights into timeless literary works. As the novel states, "Only when you have crossed the river can you say that the crocodile has a lump on his snout." This proverb encapsulates the struggles, victories, and regrets of the 2 protagonists as they navigate their intertwined destinies. Chapter 1: The Birth of 2 Opposites. On April 18, 1906, 2 boys are born into vastly different worlds, their lives destined to intertwine in ways neither could have imagined. In the depths of a Polish forest, a baby is discovered abandoned, his origins unknown. He is taken in by a humble trapper and his family, who name him Władek Koskiewicz. Though poor, the trapper raises him with love, unaware that this orphaned child possesses an extraordinary mind and a spirit that refuses to be broken. His journey will be one of hardship, but also of relentless ambition and survival. On the same day, across the Atlantic in Boston, Massachusetts, William Lowell Kane enters the world in stark contrast. Born into the wealth and privilege of one of America's most powerful banking families, he is surrounded by luxury from the moment he takes his first breath. His future is carefully mapped out: heir to Kane and Cabot, a prestigious financial empire, with access to the finest education and every advantage money can buy. While one boy is nurtured in a world of power, the other is left to fight for his place in it. But despite the differences in their birthright, both share an unyielding drive to shape their own destinies. Their fates are already in motion, bound by forces neither of them can yet comprehend. Chapter 2: Paths of Privilege and Hardship. As William Lowell Kane grows up in the wealthiest circles of Boston society, his path is carefully laid out before him. He is raised in a world of polished manners, exclusive schools, and high expectations. His father, Richard Kane, is a formidable banker, instilling in him the ruthless instincts required to lead Kane and Cabot, their family's financial empire. William's childhood is filled with lessons in power, strategy, and the unwavering belief that success is reserved for those born to wield it. Meanwhile, across the world in Poland, Władek Koskiewicz's life could not be more different. Raised in poverty, he spends his early years helping his adoptive family with their daily struggles. But fate intervenes when a local baron, impressed by Władek's intelligence, takes him in and offers him an education. For the first time, the boy glimpses a life beyond mere survival. Under the baron's mentorship, he learns not only how to read and write but also the ways of the aristocracy, a world he can never truly belong to but one he desperately admires. Yet, while William Kane enjoys privilege without struggle, Władek's path is full of obstacles. He is constantly reminded of his lowly origins, and the shadow of war looms over Poland. The contrast between the 2 boys is stark: one inherits a throne, the other must fight for every step forward. However, both are driven by an unshakable determination to control their own destinies, setting the stage for a rivalry that will span a lifetime. Chapter 3: Shadows of War and Lessons of Power. As William Kane grows older, his education becomes more intense, shaping him into the future leader of Kane and Cabot. His father, Richard Kane, ensures that he understands the ruthless nature of the financial world. William attends the best schools in America, mastering subjects that will serve him in business economics, strategy, and leadership. Yet, his childhood is devoid of warmth. His father's expectations are suffocating, and every failure is met with disappointment. William learns early that in his world, weakness is unacceptable. Meanwhile, in Poland, Władek Koskiewicz's life takes a devastating turn. The privileged education he received under the Baron's patronage is cut short when war arrives at his doorstep. The German and Russian armies sweep through the land, bringing destruction and death. The Baron's estate is attacked, and Władek is taken captive by the Russian forces, thrown into a brutal Siberian labor camp. His privileged education becomes meaningless in a world ruled by brute strength and survival. In the icy prison camp, Władek witnesses the depths of human cruelty. Starvation, disease, and relentless toil become his daily reality. But even in the bleakest moments, his determination to survive never wavers. He observes his captors, learning their weaknesses, biding his time. He understands now that power is not just inherited, it can be taken, and one day, he will seize his own destiny. As the years pass, William Kane grows into a shrewd and calculated businessman, while Władek, enduring unimaginable hardship, is forged into a survivor. Though they are still worlds apart, fate is pushing them toward each other, two men shaped by different forces, yet bound for an inevitable collision. Chapter 4: Escape and Ascent. In the frigid wasteland of Siberia, Władek Koskiewicz endures the relentless brutality of the labor camp. Surrounded by death and despair, he refuses to succumb. His keen mind, once nurtured in the Baron's household, now becomes his greatest weapon. He studies the guards' routines, memorizes the weaknesses of the prison's defenses, and waits for the right moment to escape. One fateful night, an opportunity arises. With a handful of other prisoners, Władek orchestrates a daring prison break. Through sheer will and cunning, he evades capture, traversing the frozen wilderness with nothing but hunger and determination driving him forward. He braves snowstorms, exhaustion, and enemy patrols, finally making his way westward toward Poland. But when he arrives, he finds his homeland in ruins, overrun by the aftermath of war. The Baron is dead, his estate plundered, and the life Władek once dreamed of reclaiming is gone forever. Left with nothing but his ambition, Władek makes a desperate choice. He will start anew in the United States, the land of opportunity. He assumes a new identity, calling himself Abel Rosnowski, and boards a ship bound for America, determined to build a future worthy of the hardships he has endured. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, William Kane continues to rise within the world of finance. He has graduated from Harvard, stepping seamlessly into his role at Kane and Cabot. While Abel is fighting for his very survival, William is mastering the art of high finance, making decisions that affect millions. Unbeknownst to them, their destinies are already converging, one man climbing the ladder of wealth, the other clawing his way up from nothing. Chapter 5: A New World, A New Battle. Stepping onto Ellis Island, Abel Rosnowski, formerly Władek Koskiewicz, arrives in America with nothing but a burning ambition to succeed. He is just another immigrant among thousands, but unlike many, he refuses to let poverty define him. Speaking little English and with no connections, he takes the only job he can find, washing dishes in a hotel kitchen. It is grueling, humiliating work, but Abel watches, learns, and adapts. Abel soon realizes that knowledge is power. He studies the hotel industry from the ground up, observing how the managers operate, how guests are treated, and how money moves. He makes friends where it matters, aligning himself with influential figures who recognize his sharp mind and relentless drive. Slowly, he climbs the ranks, from dishwasher to waiter, then to assistant manager. Each step forward is a victory, a defiance against the fate that tried to destroy him. On the other side of the country, William Kane is following the path carved for him by his father. After excelling at Harvard, he officially joins Kane and Cabot, proving himself as a natural businessman. He is brilliant, ruthless, and disciplined, quickly earning respect in the financial world. However, his success comes at a price. His father remains cold and demanding, expecting perfection at all times. William, like Abel, is constantly fighting for approval, though his battle is one of legacy rather than survival. As Abel rises in the hospitality industry and William secures his place in banking, their lives continue on parallel tracks, two men with unstoppable ambition, unknowingly set on a collision course that will define both of their destinies. Chapter 6: The Seeds of Rivalry. Abel Rosnowski's relentless drive begins to pay off as he rises through the ranks of the hotel business. He earns the trust of Mr. Davis Leroy, the owner of the Richmond Group of Hotels, who takes Abel under his wing. Abel's keen business acumen and natural leadership abilities make him an invaluable asset. Under Leroy's mentorship, he learns the inner workings of finance, investment, and expansion, skills that will shape his future empire. Meanwhile, in Boston, William Kane is rapidly establishing himself as a powerful figure in Kane and Cabot, proving that he is more than just the heir to a banking dynasty. He makes bold financial decisions, displaying the same sharp instincts as his father. However, he is also learning a crucial lesson: power is fragile. When the 1929 stock market crash sends the world into economic turmoil, William is forced to navigate the chaos, ensuring his family's bank survives. For Abel, the crash is disastrous. His mentor, Davis Leroy, is financially ruined and, unable to cope with the shame, takes his own life. Abel is devastated but refuses to give up. He seizes an opportunity and takes control of one of the Richmond hotels, determined to rebuild the empire his mentor lost. However, he needs financial backing to do so, and fate leads him to Kane and Cabot, the very institution William Kane now controls. When Abel approaches Kane and Cabot for a loan, he is met with rejection. William Kane, believing the investment too risky in such uncertain times, denies the request. To William, it is simply a business decision. To Abel, it is a personal attack, another rich man trying to keep him down. This moment marks the beginning of their enmity, a misunderstanding fueled by pride, ambition, and deeply ingrained resentment. Though they do not know it yet, this single rejection will ignite a rivalry that will span decades, shaping their futures and the generations that follow. Chapter 7: A Rivalry Ignited. The rejection from Kane and Cabot stings, but Abel Rosnowski refuses to let it defeat him. With the same resilience that helped him survive war, imprisonment, and poverty, he finds another way. Through sheer determination and strategic partnerships, he secures the financial backing he needs from alternative sources and takes over the Richmond Hotel. This marks the first step in what will soon become a formidable hotel empire. Meanwhile, William Kane continues to cement his reputation in the banking world. The Great Depression has left the financial sector in ruins, but Kane and Cabot, under his calculated leadership, weathers the storm. He makes shrewd investments, acquiring undervalued assets and positioning the bank for long-term dominance. Though his decision to deny Abel's loan was nothing personal, he soon hears of Rosnowski's growing success. Unbeknownst to him, his simple rejection has planted a deep-seated grudge in Abel's heart, one that will only grow stronger over time. As the years pass, Abel expands the Richmond Group, turning it into a thriving hotel chain. Every deal he makes, every hotel he acquires, he does so with a burning desire to prove that he can stand against the most powerful men in America, especially William Kane. Abel comes to see Kane as the embodiment of the elite who tried to keep him down, the man who dismissed him as insignificant. On the other hand, William Kane barely spares a thought for Abel. He sees himself as a businessman making rational choices, not realizing the enemy he has unknowingly created. Kane's focus remains on expanding his banking empire and maintaining his family's legacy, unaware that across the country, another empire is rising, one built with a relentless determination to one day destroy him. The stage is now set for a battle of wills, wealth, and power, as two men from vastly different worlds begin a lifelong war fueled by ambition, pride, and an unrelenting drive to outdo each other. Chapter 8: Success and Resentment. Years pass, and both William Kane and Abel Rosnowski become titans in their respective industries. Kane and Cabot flourishes under William's leadership, solidifying its position as one of the most powerful banks in America. He is respected, feared, and deeply committed to upholding the legacy his father built. Yet, despite his wealth and influence, William remains emotionally reserved, shaped by the rigid discipline of his upbringing. His world is defined by logic, not emotion, making him blind to the enemies he unknowingly creates. For Abel, however, success is personal. He turns the Richmond Group into a luxury hotel empire, acquiring properties across America and Europe. His greatest source of pride is the Baron, a grand hotel that symbolizes everything he has fought for. Each victory fuels his resentment toward Kane, whose rejection all those years ago remains unforgiven. Abel sees every milestone as a battle won in his unspoken war against William. Despite never having met face to face, their rivalry deepens. Whenever Kane and Cabot invests in a project, Abel deliberately seeks out its competitors, using every opportunity to undercut the bank's influence. He refuses to do business with anyone associated with Kane, making it his silent mission to challenge the very foundation of Kane's empire. But William, focused on his own ambitions, remains unaware of Abel's vendetta. To him, Abel is just another businessman in a vast financial landscape until their worlds inevitably collide once more. An opportunity arises, one that will force them into direct confrontation, setting the stage for an even greater battle, one that neither man can afford to lose. Chapter 9: A Collision of Titans. By the time World War II looms over the world, both William Kane and Abel Rosnowski are at the peaks of their respective careers. Kane continues to expand Kane and Cabot, making the bank an unshakable pillar of American finance, while Abel's Richmond Group thrives, with hotels across the country catering to the elite. Yet, despite their enormous successes, neither man is satisfied, each still driven by an unstoppable hunger for dominance. As the war escalates, Abel, though an American citizen now, never forgets his Polish roots. He watches in horror as Nazi Germany invades Poland, destroying everything in its path. The atrocities remind him of the suffering he endured as a child, and he becomes deeply involved in efforts to support the Polish resistance. He donates large sums to aid refugees and war victims, using his wealth to fight for the homeland he was forced to leave behind. Meanwhile, William Kane, ever the strategist, finds himself pulled into wartime finance, ensuring that Kane and Cabot survives through the chaos. He is also personally affected. He joins the U.S. Army Air Corps, serving with distinction. The war changes him, making him more aware of the fragility of life, but it does not soften his resolve. If anything, it hardens his belief in control, discipline, and legacy. As the war comes to an end, both men emerge with their ambitions stronger than ever. But fate has one more twist in store. In the post-war economic boom, Abel attempts to purchase a struggling bank to help finance further expansions of his hotel empire. The institution he chooses? A bank where Kane and Cabot is the majority shareholder. When William Kane learns that Abel Rosnowski is behind the acquisition attempt, he blocks the deal immediately. To William, it is nothing more than a business decision, but to Abel, it is the ultimate act of war. Kane has once again stood in his way, and this time, Abel vows he will not be denied. With this rejection, the rivalry between these two giants escalates into a full-scale vendetta, one that will consume them both, shaping not only their futures but also those of their families for generations to come. Chapter 10: The War Between Them. The post-war economic boom fuels both William Kane's and Abel Rosnowski's ambitions, but it also deepens the chasm between them. Abel, still furious over Kane's blocking of his bank acquisition, escalates his campaign against him. What was once a personal grudge now turns into a strategic, calculated vendetta. Abel vows to bring down Kane and Cabot, just as Kane had once denied him the financial support he desperately needed. Abel begins secretly acquiring shares in Kane and Cabot through intermediaries, slowly building influence within the bank that once rejected him. At the same time, he works to undermine Kane's business interests, outbidding him on real estate deals and influencing powerful figures in finance and politics to sabotage Kane's investments. His goal is not just to defeat William Kane in business, it is to humiliate him, to prove that he is the stronger man. William Kane, on the other hand, remains largely unaware of the depth of Abel's grudge. To him, decisions are purely financial, devoid of personal malice. Yet, as he starts noticing strange hostile takeovers and financial maneuvers aimed at his bank, he begins to suspect that someone is working against him. When he finally discovers Abel's involvement, the realization both angers and amuses him. He had barely thought of the man since rejecting his loan request years ago. What follows is a series of intense corporate battles. Kane and Cabot faces aggressive financial challenges, some engineered by Abel himself. In response, William uses his vast resources to protect his empire, countering Abel's attacks with his own financial tactics. The rivalry spills into boardrooms, political circles, and the stock market, drawing the attention of the financial world. Yet, even as they battle, both men are also building families. William raises his son, Richard Kane, teaching him the same ruthless discipline he was brought up with, hoping he will one day inherit the bank. Abel, too, is devoted to his daughter, Florentina, raising her to be strong and independent, determined that she will never suffer the way he did. But as their children grow, fate prepares the ultimate irony, one that neither William nor Abel could ever have foreseen. While they fight their war of hatred, their families are moving toward a fate that will bind them together in a way they never imagined. Chapter 11: The Ultimate Betrayal. As William Kane and Abel Rosnowski continue their relentless war in the financial world, neither man realizes that fate is quietly working against them in a way they never expected through their own children. William's son, Richard Kane, has grown into a bright and ambitious young man, determined to carve his own path in the world. Similarly, Abel's daughter, Florentina Rosnowski, has inherited her father's fiery determination and intelligence. Despite their parents' bitter rivalry, the two young heirs unknowingly cross paths and, against all odds, fall deeply in love. Their romance begins innocently, with neither of them aware of the hatred that has consumed their fathers for decades. But when the truth comes out, it is nothing short of an earthquake. Abel, upon discovering his daughter's love for a Kane, feels a deep, personal betrayal. The man he has spent his entire life trying to destroy now has a connection to the person he loves most. Florentina's love for Richard feels like treason. William Kane, though a more composed and strategic man, is equally shaken. To him, the idea of his son marrying into the family of the immigrant hotelier who has spent years trying to bring him down is unacceptable. The battle between the two men has been about power and pride, but now, their own flesh and blood are threatening to dismantle everything they have fought for. Florentina and Richard, however, refuse to be puppets in their father's war. They fight to stay together, determined not to let the sins of the past dictate their future. Their love story becomes an unstoppable force, one that neither Kane nor Abel can control. For the first time, both men face an enemy they cannot outmaneuver, outbid, or destroy: the will of their own children. And as their hatred collides with their love for their families, William and Abel are forced to ask themselves a question they have never considered before: has their rivalry gone too far? Chapter 12: Love Against Legacy. As Florentina Rosnowski and Richard Kane defy their father's deep-seated hatred and continue their relationship, the battle between William Kane and Abel Rosnowski takes a new turn, one that is no longer just about business, but about control over their own children's destinies. Abel, still unable to accept his daughter's love for the son of his greatest enemy, forbids her from seeing Richard. He sees her relationship as an insult to the suffering he endured, convinced that no Kane could ever bring happiness to a Rosnowski. He believes that Richard, like his father, is only interested in power and will never see Florentina as an equal. His protective nature and long-standing hatred blind him to his daughter's true happiness. William Kane, though initially less emotional, takes an equally unyielding stance. He has spent his entire life shaping Richard to be the future of Kane and Cabot, and he sees Florentina as a threat to that plan. She is the daughter of a man who has worked tirelessly to undermine him, and William refuses to allow his son's future to be jeopardized by love. He warns Richard that aligning himself with a Rosnowski will destroy everything he has built for him. Despite the pressure from their families, Florentina and Richard remain committed to each other. They believe that their love can overcome the bitterness of the past, but the forces against them are formidable. Their fathers wield immense power, and neither man is willing to surrender. The battle escalates beyond words. Both Kane and Abel use their wealth and influence to try to separate the young lovers. Abel cuts off Florentina financially, hoping to force her away from Richard. William threatens to disinherit Richard, making it clear that if he chooses love over legacy, he will lose his place in the Kane dynasty. But Florentina and Richard refuse to be pawns in their father's war. They make a fateful decision to leave their families behind and start a new life together, on their own terms. Their defiance marks a turning point. For the first time, William Kane and Abel Rosnowski are powerless. Their decades-long rivalry, built on hatred and revenge, is now causing them to lose what truly matters most, their own children. As the lovers walk away, Kane and Abel are left with a chilling realization. Has their battle gone too far? And if so, can it ever be undone? Chapter 13. A rift that cannot be mended. Florentina Rosnowski and Richard Kane's bold decision to leave their families behind shakes both William Kane and Abel Rosnowski to their core. Neither man has ever been defied so completely, and for the first time, their war costs them something far more personal than money or power, their own children. Abel, enraged and heartbroken, disowns Florentina, refusing to acknowledge her existence. The daughter he once adored is now a traitor in his eyes, siding with the very family that sought to crush him. His pride, which has fueled him through every battle, will not allow him to forgive her. William Kane, though equally disappointed, handles the situation differently. Unlike Abel, he does not cut Richard off completely but makes it clear that his decision has consequences. Richard is removed from his position at Kane and Cabot, his inheritance is put into question, and he is warned that there will be no return to the family legacy if he continues down this path. Despite the punishment from their fathers, Florentina and Richard build a life together. They marry in a simple ceremony, without the presence of either family. Determined to prove themselves, they begin carving out their own success, independent of their powerful last names. As years pass, William and Abel continue their Cold War in business, but their personal losses begin to weigh on them. Neither man will admit it, but they feel the absence of their children. When tragedy strikes, fate forces them to confront their choices. A sudden health crisis shakes one of them, reminding them that wealth, power, and victory mean little without family. The question now lingers: is it too late for reconciliation, or will their pride destroy what little remains? Chapter 14. The Price of Pride. Years pass, but the wounds of betrayal remain fresh. Abel Rosnowski refuses to acknowledge Florentina, keeping her name unspoken in his household. His once unbreakable bond with his daughter is shattered by pride and hatred, and though he buries himself in work, an emptiness lingers, one he will never admit. William Kane, though similarly estranged from Richard, takes a more calculated approach. He does not disown his son outright but maintains a cold distance, refusing to offer support or recognition. He watches from afar as Richard and Florentina build their lives, their success a painful reminder that they have thrived without the Kane or Rosnowski empires. Despite their father's rejection, Florentina and Richard flourish, proving that love can withstand the weight of generational hatred. Florentina, inheriting her father's business acumen, opens a small chain of boutique hotels, while Richard, armed with his financial skills, finds success in investment banking. Together, they build a legacy free from the shadows of Kane and Cabot and the Richmond Group. However, fate has one more lesson for William and Abel: time waits for no man. When William Kane suffers a sudden heart attack, the reality of mortality strikes him. For all his victories, for all his wealth, he faces the end alone, estranged from the son who once admired him. Lying in a hospital bed, he finally begins to question whether his ruthless ambition was worth the cost. At the same time, Abel's empire reaches new heights, but his health, too, begins to decline. He has everything he once dreamed of, yet the one person he truly loved, his daughter, remains absent. His war against Kane had consumed him, and now, he wonders if he has been fighting the wrong battle all along. As death looms over them both, the weight of their unforgiving rivalry presses down. Will they find the strength to make peace before it's too late? Or will their pride seal their fate, leaving behind a legacy of hatred instead of love? Epilogue: the end of a war, the beginning of a legacy. With the deaths of William Kane and Abel Rosnowski, a rivalry that spanned decades and shaped industries finally comes to an end. Yet, their legacy does not lie in the wealth they accumulated or the battles they fought, it lives on in Richard Kane and Florentina Rosnowski, the two who dared to break free from the cycle of hatred. Now successful in their own right, Florentina and Richard build a future together, one their fathers could never have envisioned. Florentina expands her hotel empire, proving herself a formidable businesswoman, while Richard carves out his own path in finance, both refusing to be defined by their father's feud. Despite the scars of the past, they honor their fathers in different ways. Richard ensures that Kane and Cabot continues to thrive, though under his own terms, with a new vision that values relationships over ruthless ambition. Florentina, driven by the hardships her father faced as an immigrant, establishes a charitable foundation in his name, helping others who struggle to build new lives in America. Their children, the next generation, will never know the bitterness that once divided their families. Instead, they inherit a legacy not of hatred, but of resilience, determination, and love. In the end, the story of Cain and Abel was never just about rivalry, it was about fate, choices, and the cost of pride. Their war had shaped history, but it was their children who rewrote its ending. And as Florentina and Richard walk forward together, they prove that even the deepest feuds can be overcome not by power, but by the courage to choose a different path. This material is presented by Dadson Education, a not-for-profit organization committed to offering insightful literary discussions. If you found this content engaging, stay connected for more captivating stories. Share it with others who enjoy compelling narratives, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below.